Hello and welcome to, well, my lounge. Because we've only recently moved into the house, the rest of the place is a bit of a tip. Can hardly move for boxes and kitchen units and all manner of stuff. So I'm in one of the only semi-respectable corners of the house just to talk about chili and pepper varieties. So I've already prepared the greenhouse for sowing tomorrow, and what I'm going to do now is get these chili and pepper seeds ready to soak overnight. So soaking is optional. You can just sow the chili and pepper seeds and they usually do reasonably well. Over the years though, I have had quite a few instances where the seed leaves become stuck in the case, and the seed case, it's dry and hard, and sometimes they don't manage to extract themselves from it entirely successfully. It can lead to damaged seedlings, and it might be that on those occasions I've allowed the moisture level to drop just a little bit too low. But I think that when I soak the seeds, possibly I get better germination, but I certainly get less problems with the seed leaves getting stuck inside the seed case. So that is the habit I have now, and I don't want to soak them too long. So what I'm going to do is, just before I go to bed tonight, I'm just using these little glasses to keep them in. I will just pop in a drop of room temperature water, so not ice cold water, and I'll leave those to soak, and then I'll do the sowing first thing in the morning. Then they haven't been in there too long. I think possibly just a few 2 or 3 hours might be helpful, but I'll leave them overnight. So what I thought I'd do first is just talk about the varieties I'm growing this year, and then I'll come back in the morning and I'll sow those in the cell trays that I've prepared. So I'm doing a mixture of sweet peppers and hot peppers, and one thing I always recommend is, if you're going to grow sweet peppers, is to mix up the types. In particular, I mean, if you want large fruited sweet peppers, and we usually do grow some, they take quite a long time to grow. And then if you don't like them when they're green, and I don't like those peppers when they're green, the dark green bell peppers or bull's horn types, I find them rather bitter and unpleasant. So I'd much rather allow them to ripen, but it takes then a very long time. They're big fruits. It takes a long time to grow the fruit, and then even longer if you want to allow it to ripen. And that's great later in the summer, late summer and into autumn. But if I want ripe peppers, sweet peppers, earlier in the season, there are tons of small fruited varieties, and you grow them in the same way that you would a chili. Whereas I prune the large fruited sorts, I just grow the small fruited sorts as a bush, pretty much however they want to develop. And because they're small fruited, it takes a fraction of the time for the fruit to grow to full size and then to colour up. So we can get some ripe fruit a lot sooner with some of those small fruited ones. If I could only grow one sort, it would be the small fruited peppers, simply because they're immensely productive and they are early fruiting. However, I do love the bull's horn peppers in particular, and we'll do a mixture of both. And then I've got a few chilies. I've got a load of old favourites, and I've got a couple of new ones, which we'll give them a try and see how they do. So to start with, the large fruited sorts, just the regular bull's horn peppers. I've got one red and one yellow, and I've got these from different places. I found it really tricky this year actually to find varieties that I wanted. in just one place. So I've had to shop around to get these from various places. But these are great. These are the ones that I've been growing for many years. So then I've got 3 chilies. Now I know some of there's sort of a grey area where some of these peppers, sometimes they're listed as extremely mild chilies, you know, with a Scoville rating of just a few hundred. Well, that's so little heat, you might as well call it a sweet pepper. So I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of these fit into that category, but basically I've got 3 where I expect them to be warmish and the rest are sweet. So I've got Hungarian hot wax. That one is a regular. Now, the heat on the hot wax is a little bit variable. Sometimes it's really quite mild and sometimes it can have a bit of a kick. I think it varies quite a bit. Maybe there are different strains of Hungarian hot wax, and it also varies quite a lot from season to season, even if you're using the same seed, depending on the growing conditions at the time. So that's one of them. I've got probably my favorite of the cayenne peppers. That is Joe's Long Cayenne. Very long, thin fruits, and they're a pleasant heat. I'll happily put 1 or 2 of those in a dish, and it won't be burning hot. I prefer to have a slightly milder chili. I do like heat, but I'd rather have more of the chili than just a pinch of something blazing hot, because I want that fruity, peppery flavour with it as well. And then I've got the classic Padron, which I've often grown. Now, Padron is typically taken a tapas pepper, small and green and fried in olive oil, pinch of salt. That's fine. And I will use some of them green, but also if you allow them to develop to full size and then ripen, they ripen to a nice red, and they have more warmth when they are red. They're very mild when they're green. Occasionally there might be a spicy one in there. When they're red, they all tend to be a little bit spicy, but they've got a very nice fruity flavour. So I'm always happy to allow them to ripen as well. Very nice indeed. So those are the 3 peppers that I expect to have some heat. Now the next one, I'm not sure about this. It just arrived in a little baggie with some loose seed, and these came off eBay, and I have to be honest, my experience of buying seeds from eBay has been a bit hit and miss, maybe more miss than hit. I'm sure you can get seed that will germinate well and is true to variety, but I've had some that either didn't germinate or when it did was not what it was supposed to be. I'm really hoping that this is what it's supposed to be. It's known as Senese, and it's a pepper from the Basilicata region of Italy. This is a big deal in the regional cuisine. They grow these peppers. They're not very big. They're about yay long, and they're a sweet pepper, and they're thin-walled, and they're fantastic for drying. And you see them on great big strings, and once they're dried, they then, for example, often they'll be fried in some olive oil, and they'll be crisp and maybe then crumbled over a dish, or they're delicious just eaten as a snack, and they are lovely and very popular in that region, and an important part of the local dishes. If this is that pepper from Basilicata, I will be very pleased indeed. But I'm only going to grow a couple of plants of that, I think, in case this is not true to type, and we'll just wait and see. I've had enough seed from non-traditional retailers, let's say, that I don't want to trust that too much. And then I've got 3 ordinary sweet peppers, and I've sort of grown all these before, except this first one, which is named Samora. That is supposedly a sweet banana type. Now I've grown a pepper called sweet banana for well, many years, and it's effectively a sweet version of the Hungarian hot wax. Those peppers look very similar. There's a whole number of varieties of similar looking, smaller pointed peppers, typical sort of Greek Mediterranean pepper, or maybe found in Turkish cuisine. But that sort of pepper is very prolific. Sweet banana will produce an enormous number of peppers, as indeed will the Hungarian hot wax. I think this is an Eastern European type, and I haven't grown this specific variety, but if it's anything like the sweet banana I've grown before, it should produce an enormous number of fruit. Now, unlike the large fruited sweet peppers, where I don't like them green, this kind of pepper, the hot wax and sweet banana, they're fine green. They don't have that same bitterness, not to my taste anyway. And they will ripen. They will ripen to an orangey red. They don't develop the dark red of some of the other sweet pepper varieties, but they're great. Well, they're this sort of pale limey green colour, and then they're fine when they're red as well. They're excellent fried whole, a little splash of vinegar, pinch of salt, clamp the lid on, and they're wonderful. They're also great on the barbecue in the summer when the weather's nicer, if it is nicer. And then I've got 2 that I've definitely grown lots of times before. Frigiatello and, well, this is Sigaretta di Bergamo, also known as Dolce di Bergamo. Both of those are pretty prolific. Frigiatello, it's about yay big. A bit like a small bull's horn, but very often with a somewhat blunt end to it, not necessarily as pointy. The Bergamo pepper, it tends to be quite long. It looks a little bit like Joe's Long Cayenne, actually. Maybe not quite as long as that, but you could easily get those 2 muddled up. Probably not something you want to do. This one is a sweet pepper. If it has any warmth at all, it's the tiniest amount. So as far as I know, it's usually listed as a chili, and it is on this packet, but there's so little warmth to it that you use it as a sweet pepper. If you're looking for chili heat, it would be very disappointing. But if you're looking for a nice, productive sweet pepper, then it's wonderful. And they're fantastic when they're roasted. That's my favourite way of having those. But they're also good. They're also good in the salad. So that is the varieties, and we've been having a look at how many we're going to grow of each one. We're hoping to be able to fit 20 of the small fruited sorts in, and maybe we can get maybe up to 8 of the larger ones. So all I'm doing here is just going through these packets, and I've got labels ready, and I've got all these little glasses. I'm just going to count out the number of seeds I need, pop in the relevant label, and then just before I go to bed this evening, at the last moment, I will just pop some water in there and allow them to soak overnight. And tomorrow we'll fish them out and pop them in the cell trays. So I'm going to leave this section of the video here. Next time you see me, it will be tomorrow, and we'll be up in the greenhouse. So back in a minute. Right, I am back in the greenhouse. The seeds have been soaking overnight, and I'm pretty much ready to sow. Now, I mentioned in the previous video that I'd set out a couple of temperature sensors one in the greenhouse itself and one inside the propagators, just so I could monitor what's going on. Those sensors log the temperature and humidity, and so I can see what's happened in the night. And I also mentioned in that video there can be a little bit of a risk with propagators that if you don't ventilate them in good time in the mornings, the temperatures can really soar in them. Well, as it happened, I'm just looking at the data now on the phone here. The temperature in the propagator went up to about 26 degrees, just under 26 degrees this morning. And looking at the overnight temperature, well, it was around 20.5 degrees. So I've set it to 21. I don't know how accurate those thermostats are, and I don't know how accurate these sensors are. So I'm going to assume there's sort of a plus or minus 1 degree on that. But I said it looks like it pretty much held its temperature overnight. And if I look at the greenhouse temperatures, sorry, it's just logging, and all right, there we go. That was around 7.5 degrees last night. So this propagator's given a fairly good lift above that. So I'm very happy that this is doing a nice job. I mean, that would have maintained a pretty good temperature for germination all through the night. Now, if you look for the perfect temperature for germination, it's a little higher than 21, I think. However, I don't like to set it higher than that. The reason being that if you have it set, you know, a few degrees higher, and then the sun comes out in the morning, it's going to get even hotter if it started at that hotter temperature to begin with. So I don't like to do that. But if I show you this graph, I hope this will show up on the camera. If not, I'll try and take a photo of it and get it on the video. But you might be able to see that there is a huge spike as soon as the sun came out this morning, and it is a lovely sunny day at the moment. And that's the log from in the greenhouse here. And give it a second. Oh, do come on. All right, here we go. And there's a very similar looking graph from the propagator itself. So we're kind of getting a double whammy here. We're getting the thermal gain from the greenhouse and then also from the propagator. Now, I did spot one other problem this morning when I came in here, and let me see if it will show up on the camera. Now, because I'd watered those cell trays overnight with the heat in the propagator, they've released quite a bit of moisture. This isn't great. It's not a bad idea to wipe this down, actually. However, revealed in those droplets are these funky tracks all over this panel. That is almost certainly a little slug. Now, I don't think it came from the propagator. It was almost certainly, I would think, in the compost or in one of the seed trays. So that's a bit of an issue, because if there is a slug marauding here, the little blighters are rather prone to chewing off the tops of any young seedlings before they have a chance to develop. So I'm not happy with that. So that's the last thing I want to see, where I'm just about to put the new seeds. So I think what I'll have to do is put just a couple of organic slug pellets in there, and hopefully get rid of that little pest before these seedlings germinate. Everybody's had it, I'm sure. You have a nice little tray of young seedlings coming out, and next time you look, there's just the there's a hint of a stump left where they chewed the tops off, and that is a big wind up. So I think just a few little slug pellets there, maybe just on top of the cells or in the tray itself. Hopefully that will deal with that long before these plants get a chance to germinate. I couldn't find it. We had a really good look. It's probably only one of those small little black slugs, but since I can't find it, I'm going to have to put something in there to prevent it from damaging the young seedling. So anyway, that's enough waffle. Better get on with some sowing. Right, I've got to be a little bit careful here. I'm going to just tip off the water and hopefully not the seeds. I should have brought a little sieve with me. Right, that will do. I found tweezers quite handy for this. So what am I doing? This is one of the sweet peppers, the bull's horn types. This is the red one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 seeds in each cell, and I'm also going to sow probably an extra cell or 2, and that way I can be pretty confident that even if the germination is a bit pants, that they will give me plenty of plants. I wouldn't be surprised to find that, not from these, I expect good germination from these bull's horn peppers, but I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of the chillies give me a little bit erratic germination. They often do. Now, germination time for peppers and chillies, well, it's quite variable. If you're really lucky, you might see something after a week, but normally it's 2 to 3 weeks, I think, and it can be even longer. It does vary, I think, by variety, but also the state of the seed, when they were harvested, how they've been stored, and so it is quite variable, and sometimes you have to be rather patient. I've had situations where I've sown a second batch thinking that they were never going to germinate, and along they come, 4 or 5 weeks after sowing. So that can happen. Right, I'm not going to need more than that. We haven't physically got space for it, so that will do. So all I'm going to do is pop that label in there, and I'll take the label for the next one. That would be the yellow one. Pop that straight in there, then I won't lose my place, and so it goes. So all I'm going to do is just push those seeds just below the surface, not far, and then cover them with a little bit of compost. There's a little bit more mix here if I want to just lightly put it on top. I'm not pressing this down, but you do want contact between the compost and the seed. Otherwise the moisture in the compost is not going to keep the seed moist. So but this is a really light compost mix, so it's not really firming it in at all. Just gently in contact. And of course, although I'm using tweezers, I'm doing it very gently, and I've never noticed any damage. Just got to be a little bit careful. But because the seeds are wet, they're a little tricky to handle. If I were using dry seeds, I wouldn't be bothering with the tweezers. And well, that is it. I'm not going to film all of this. Of course, that would be extremely boring. So I'll just leave it there. Well, that sun is really shining off my bald head now. So time for me to switch the camera off, I think. I'm just going to carry on, do exactly the same with all of those, and then pop them back into propagators. Now, what I will do at this point is open the vents. I may well, looking at the weather, it will probably cloud over a little bit later, but I may well just leave those lids askew so they've got plenty of ventilation, because it's going to be well above the required temperature in here today. And then we just need to pop up here later in the evening as the sun's going down and close those vents, put the lids back on properly, and they'll be tucked away quite happily for the night. And hopefully we will deal with that little slug-based problem. So anyway, that is it for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.